Hello, everybody, and welcome to a. I'm not honestly sure what to call this. I guess like radio play-by-play is, if we're being honest, probably the best thing. As you can tell from the background, and sorry if my eyes go over here, there is a monitor right there that has what I'm recording, and the camera is there. So there's kind of like a natural desire to look at, what's going on. So you may say that as I try to figure out how to, put my arms here so that the virtual background doesn't screw up as much as possible. There is no green screen behind me. It's just this is the XSplit cam thing, as you can see from the watermark that is allowing this. Anyways, let's just get to what this is. So this is kind of like a radio play-by-play broadcast of the MMA sim. Now, some of you might be asking what MMA is, and most of you will probably be asking what the MMA sim is. Okay, let's start with MMA because that's the most important thing. And also, just as a general note, this will be the intro to all commentary until I redo it. So there will be many videos with me wearing this shirt and this level of beard and this level of shaved head. And it's not that's a fresh record. That's an old record. But anyways, where to begin with MMA? So, as you can tell from the background, MMA is a combat sport. It is a combat sport that introduces the ideas of boxing, wrestling, grappling in general, kickboxing, into one art, one athletic endeavor, which, in my opinion, is the ultimate test of combat in a regulated environment. The ultimate idea of a street fight given rules. And of course, some people know this as UFC or Ultimate Fighting. This is because the UFC is the world's largest promotion historically and currently in the MMA landscape. This means that it's the equivalent of the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. It's the league where the best fighters, for the most part, ply their craft and their trade. There are exceptions. There are elite fighters in other places like Bellator and KSW and Ryzen and ONE FC. But the UFC has probably somewhere at any given time of like 80 to 90% of the top fighters in the world across all the weight classes. So there's that. It's a sport where it's legal to elbow your opponent, punch your opponent, kick your opponent, knee your opponent, take them down, lock them into submission holds, and yeah, that's basically it. There is no fish hooking, there is no biting, there is no low blows. There is, depending on the promotion, some certain other things that are illegal. No small joint manipulation, so you can't do like a finger locker on somebody or something. That'd be really, really painful, and probably end fights very quickly. And then what is the MMA sim? So when I was a young lad, number one, I became a fan of MMA at the age of 14 or so, watching Pride FC and the UFC. And then obviously I got to college. I did computer engineering. I became interested in exploring MMA in a way that is incredibly nerdy, and that is creating a mixed martial arts simulator out of code and the ability to run fights. The dream fights that everybody wants. Now, of course, there's a flaw in this because the database is maintained by yours truly. Therefore, my view of fighters is obviously going to skew things. I think perhaps the best example of me being absolutely wrong was that I did underrate Conor McGregor coming up. I did think that his style would not translate terribly well to the more North American based UFC, and where wrestling becomes a lot higher because, of course, in the United Kingdom, it's a bit of a meme, not super true, but wrestling is generally at a somewhat lower level. And I was wrong on that. Now, for ones I was completely correct on, Cain Velasquez, for example, I saw in his second ever MMA fight. I created him into the simulator, and he went on to become a UFC champion in a way very similar to what I thought was going to happen. So I've been right, I've been wrong. And then what this is I've decided because I'm a little underemployed at the moment, and I don't know how long this will last, but a little bit underemployed at the moment, a little bit bored, if we're quite honest. And I am running basically my own version of the UFC. I call it OFC, Online Fighting Championship. And the fighters in it are people that I know either from my MMA fandom, video games, real life, whatever. If you want a fighter, we can make that happen. We can make that happen. You just need to give me your physical dimensions, basically, and a bit of an idea of like what your fighter would be like. Do you have a wrestling background? Do you have a boxing background? Are you a former football player, former basketball player? What are some athletic traits you have? Are you particularly strong? Are you particularly tough, particularly hard-hitting? Is there some weaknesses? And to be clear, I want to be clear here, having weaknesses is what makes the fighter interesting. Fighters that are just good at everything are boring. It's not terribly fun doing them. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, by the name of Paul. I'm maybe gonna exclude some last names from this, just until I kind of get whether they're comfortable being included here. The two fighters I have today I know are comfortable, so that's actually quite easy. But my friend Paul is an example of this. He's a very one-dimensional fighter. He hits hard, he's incredibly tough, and he has reasonable boxing, but his wrestling is first level, and as we go, I think that'll be more clear what I mean about that. And then on top of that, you have what is the best way of putting this? No real ground game. So he can be submitted, he can be dominated on the ground, but he's incredibly hard to put away with strikes, and it leads to like just absolutely chaotic and super fun fights, even if he loses a relatively large amount of the time. So that's kind of the thing. Now, is this a one-to-one simulation of real life? No. There are going to be people that I commentate on here that are actual fighters and have actual professional records, amateur records, submission grappling credentials, boxing credentials, kickboxing credentials. And we kind of round that into still being competitive in the same space with someone who has never fought before, but we're basing that off of athletic ability, that to try to make it fun. And there will be some fighters who are kind of what we call cants. They're professional opponents there to lose. And the reason for that is quite simple, actually. Sometimes it's they've created themselves that way. Sometimes it's they've frankly just lied to me in a manner that doesn't really work. The best example is there is a fighter who claimed to be a master of San Chow and Krav Maga and so on, but could answer nothing fundamental. And it'd be one thing if you were like, I want to be this fighter, but he was trying to present himself as that fighter, and as a result, we made him a can. About the only thing he has is a relatively high amount of durability, so the fights take a while, but they're very one-sided ass whippings. And that's it. And you will see him at some point, probably. So what am I doing here is, on every OFC card I run, outside of the first two, because I thought of this around OFC 3, I'm going to pick the fight of the night. Now, I may ask for some thoughts from people on a Discord server in regards to that, and the link to that is below, as to what the fight of the night was after I provide a text-based summary of it. And then I'm going to give it voice and give it a YouTube video. So once a week, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to commentate a fight, basically. If you like it, stick with the ride. If you don't like it, no hard feelings. If you want a fighter in the sim, like I said, Discord down below, and you can reach me there, and other people who can help you and come up with ideas and so on to go through it. There we go. So I don't want to get in too deep because I want this to be a general video. So that's where I'm going to cut off this intro, and I'm going to come back, and there's going to be a screen here with the fight breakdown of what's coming up. OFC number 3, the heavyweight quarterfinals. Fight of the night was between the Berserk Yeti, Byron Derksen, the favorite for the tournament, taking on Joachim Jackhammer Hunviksson. And let's get to the tail of the tape, shall we? So Derksen, of course, is a gigantic behemoth of a man, standing 6 foot 6 inches tall, weighed in at 265.5 pounds, just within the permitted weight limits of heavyweight. And Hunviksson, also a guy who cuts weight to make weight, weighed in at 265 pounds. He is 6'4", so 2 inches shorter, and the reach difference here is 3 inches. Derksen will have that greater reach offensiveness, and he is a pancration fighter training out of AMC Pancration with, of course, the legendary Matt Hume. Hunviksson's a bit of a weird guy, as he comes from a boxing predominant background, but wrestles more in a clinch fighting, dirty boxing style of fighter. Trains out of Empire MMA here in the local area. Of course, I am local to the GTA Toronto area, so a lot of those gyms will be getting a shout out, of course, over the course of these cards. How does this fight break down, basically? So with Derksen, you have a dynamic offensive threat. His offense is not very structured. It's very chaotic, but controlled at the same time. He throws with mean intentions and has a great deal of knockout power. He's capable of knocking you out with punches, kicks, knees, and in the clinch. Not to mention, he's an incredibly hard guy to take down. Very solid takedown defense, and actually a very underrated grappler, in my opinion. He really is kind of the perfect heavyweight design, in the sense that he is durable, powerful, and can attack you in a well-rounded manner. Something that is generally lacking at heavyweight, because, of course, heavyweight is this kind of weird place where fighters can get away with being a lot more one-dimensional. In theory, he has the ability to attack where he needs to, or where he has advantages, as opposed to where he is limited to attacking to. He comes into this fight with a 10-0 record. Hunviksson comes into this fight with a record of 11-2. And he was chosen by Derksen for this fight. Derksen had the first pick after the preliminary OFC Heavyweight Tournament bouts, when he defeated, in emphatic fashion, Jeremy Ellis. And as a result, Hunviksson, who is coming off of a victory over LT Walk, will be asked to do with this one. And the reason provided really is that it's a new matchup. Like I said, Hunviksson does possess that boxing game, but you really wouldn't really know it. He's not a guy that feels tremendously comfortable at range or necessarily in the pocket, although he is not incapable. He does like to get in close. He does like to clinch with you. He does like to emphasize a wrestling, dirty boxing style attack on people, where he wears people down, and that's how he beat Walk. Get him into the clinch. Struggled a little bit early with Walk's extreme power, because Walk is one of the largest men you're ever going to see at heavyweight. Very much almost at the limit of how much you can cut. For those who are unaware, MMA involves a lot of weight cutting. A fighter who fights at, say, 170 pounds does not walk around at 170 pounds. They cut down. In my sim, I've taken somewhat of the largest components of potential weight cutting and brought it into play. Walk is at the very, very edge of where a guy can be to make heavyweight. So he's massive. And Hunviksson struggled to control him early. The size disadvantage is not as extreme here, but we are still talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 pounds. So it is still going to be struggling. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do, particularly early on. And the thing is, Derksen doesn't wear down in the same way that LT does. As a result, is there really a path to victory for the Jackhammer? Can he really come out there, get that clinch game that he wants, work his game, break down Derksen, and actually deliver? And it's going to be very, very difficult if he can. But it would make a statement if he could get this job done, because I honestly do believe the winner of this fight has to be the favorite to win the tournament that remains. Because also on tonight's card, we will have the following bouts, as Mark Meatloaf Kelso meets up with G. Rilla Shreve. That's going to be, I think, an exciting bout as well. And we're also going to see Gerald Madman Derksen in action, and he is going to be taking on Gratch Warnken in his quarterfinal matchup, as well as a matchup between Hell's Fire Smith taking on Pete Clover, the Rat Bastard. And he's looking to make it 2 wins in a row over the Clover family. So that's pretty much all there is to break down here. It's not a super, super technical matchup, but it does ask some very, very interesting questions, and my hands are going nuts here. I'm kind of tempted to bring the webcam into this play, but I don't know. Probably not. Anyways, let's get on to the fight. This was, again, the fight of the night from OFC 3, and we're going to get on to that. Round 1, Derksen versus Hunviksson. The two fighters come out, touch gloves, and we are off to the races. Derksen coming forward, filling the air with a jab, pawing out there, trying to find his range. He knows he has that reach advantage. He can try and make use of that. Hunviksson's trying to find a way to step into the pocket. He's doing a good shoulder roll and actually deflecting a lot of what's coming in. There isn't a lot of commitment from Derksen as of yet, though. Derksen steps in with a big low kick and then tries to enter into the pocket and gets knocked down with a hard right counter hook that has Derksen down, but he is right back up here early. Derksen backing off against Hunviksson, who is now tracking him down towards the cage. Finding a good home for that lead jab that is really kind of stifling the timing Derksen wants to employ here. I think Derksen's a little bit rocked, a little bit unsure of himself right now, looks a little bit unsteady on his feet, but he does have the ability to, you know, try to stay out of range and try and make this a range kickboxing game if he can get off the cage. Derksen is, however, back on the cage as Hunviksson engages in the clinch. Working a dirty boxing there with hammer fists to the ribs and also the thigh region of the Berserk Yeti. Maybe looking for a takedown. I'm not entirely certain. There's a lot of hand fighting going on in the clinch, but it seems like he's happy to stay standing and just land shots where needed. Derksen's got a hard overhook, which he's trying to use to separate from the cage and try and get this back at his range. And it does. I think Hunviksson may have just let him go there, realizing that it was burning more energy than he really had to bring. Derksen circles away, and we have a bit of a reset here before Derksen tries to re-enter the pocket. Throws a hard low kick, which is a good lander, but I don't really think that Hunviksson's stance is really going to be compromised by those low kicks. Despite his boxing background, he's not really a traditional boxing stance guy. He's adapted well to the MMA game in that regard, but these low kicks are starting to score. I think there was another 2 there that I missed as Derksen comes forward and tries to engage in the pocket, that forward momentum. And another hard check hook from Hunviksson as he enters the pocket. This one does not drop Derksen. He looked much more prepared this time. But Derksen tries to get in close and actually engages in the clinch with Hunviksson, who nails a good knee to the midsection and just kind of shrugs him off, landing a nice 3-pinch combination. Derksen seems absolutely bewildered. It looked like he thought that the pocket was going to be a safe place for him to enter. And Hunviksson has now twice stung him with hard counter hooks that have put him on the back foot. Derksen circles away, landing another low kick and pawing out there with that jab. That jab gets hand parried by Hunviksson, who comes in with a thunderous right hook to the body. Derksen is hurt by that one. There is a little bit of redness showing on his rib cage as he pulls into the clinch again with Hunviksson and tries to push him back into the cage. It does not work, though. Hunviksson manages to tie up and actually puts Derksen back to the cage again, landing with a good little bit of dirty boxing there. And there is problems here with 2 minutes left in the first round. Derksen really seems to be completely short-circuited right now. I don't know if I've ever really seen someone do this to the Berserk Yeti. We have seen him lose before, obviously. This is a long-standing fighter who has been in the sim and reset a number of times. He's undefeated in this current iteration. But it has been by means that are not this. It's been by means of the range kickboxing game or a very wrestling, grappling-centric game, or just the complete chaos of a one-punch KO. But in the meantime, Hunviksson's got him up against the cage. Derksen trying to push off and uses that overhook to get out of there again and escape. But Hunviksson follows him with a nice 5-punch combination. It didn't fully land. A lot of that was to the arms. It didn't really hit. But I think there was a good straight right hand here that landed against Derksen, and there is a little bit of blood coming from his nose. Byron Derksen trying to get back into this one. He throws an absolute barrage of punches. About 7 punches, I think, there. But Hunviksson did a good job of absorbing that and not really having a problem. He digs hard with a left hook to the body as well, which stifles, again, Derksen's ability to control that boxing pocket. I've never seen someone deny Derksen the pocket in this manner, and it's very, very interesting to me. It's not a game that I thought Hunviksson would really have in him. He's a very aggressive, clinch-based fighter, and we certainly are seeing that aggression, that clinch-based fighting, but we're also seeing this calm, collected, game where he is landing solid counter punches and really making Derksen think twice as we have about 15 seconds to go in the round. Derksen coming forward again. Hunviksson lands a good uppercut. We're going to the bell here with both men swinging, and it is going to be possibly one of them going down. Will someone fall in the last 5 seconds here? No, we got the bell sounding, and we are off to round number 2. But a fantastic round, and one that you have to think Hunviksson won between the drop and between the I'm looking at the numbers here. The number of strikes far outlanding Hunviksson right now, almost at a 2-to-1 clip, and he had some good cage control time as well. Derksen has not been able to assert his will on this fight, and that's going to be very, very interesting because I've never seen someone quite attack him in that way. We'll see what happens in round number 2. We get round 2 underway here. Derksen versus Hunviksson. Round 1, I think we have to clearly think, went all the way to Hunviksson here. He dropped Derksen. We get a glove touch, very honorable, very respectful between these two fighters. Let's see what Derksen could do here with the reach and some adjustments here. He is pawing out there with that jab once again. Hunviksson, kind of passive. We're seeing a very unaggressive version of him here. There's not a lot of forward footwork here. He's really just letting Derksen dictate the fight to a certain degree while creating this zone of danger around the pocket. We've seen him land a couple of very, very hard counters here already. And Derksen's definitely thinking about that because he's really pawing out there with that jab, really fighting at range. He's throwing a little low kick, but it's a little even tentative there. He doesn't want to let the gap get closed here. And Hunviksson seems kind of willing to take this round off. It seems almost really. I mean, obviously, we're very, very early here. We're 1 minute into a 5-minute round. It is a heavyweight fight. These fights are not usually fought at a tremendously high pace. But at the same time, I feel like it feels like he's maybe drunk on his own success just a little bit. And, okay, there we go. Now he's coming forward, trying to get that jab out, trying to get that hand parry out. He's very good with that hand parry. I think that's going to be a key thing to closing the gap here and doing some things. But Derksen's doing a great job of stepping back. He's not planting himself very well. That does mean that he's not getting a lot of power in there, but he does land a very good backhand uppercut there to Derksen's head, or to Hunviksson's head, and does push off with the lead hand nicely. Lands a good little 3-punch combination on the separation there. Not really the separation, pardon me, but pulling out of the pocket, or at least out of boxing range for Hunviksson. Hunviksson is stalking him, though. It seems like if he runs into that cage, there's going to be some problems, because that's going to open up the offense from the jackhammer, I think, in a very significant way. Derksen throws a good low kick there. That one had some cut on it. Hunviksson closes in, lands a good body shot as well for his own rights, but Derksen manages to circle away, manages to land a good knee as well into the body of Hunviksson as he separates. He kind of came in there with like a partial clinch, an over-under clinch, then backs away, throws a good little jab there just to keep the separation. Not anything significant in terms of damage yet in this round. By the way, Derksen's nose does look a fair bit better right now. It does look like the blood has stopped flowing, so excellent work by the corner and the cut man there at the same time, but he is still bruised up to the body a little bit, and there is a slight bruise appearing on Hunviksson's leg. We'll see if that affects his mobility in any way. Hunviksson is now trying to come forward, so this is more the fight that I thought we were going to see, where Hunviksson would have to come forward to make things happen. He is at the reach disadvantage, pawing out there with that jab. Derksen is getting very close to that cage, though. I'm a little bit worried about that. But right now, Derksen doing quite well. Nice little counter punch there. Sneaks a left hand through right into the right eye of Hunviksson. Very nice work. And he follows it up with a good right hand to the body. But Hunviksson manages to catch it. He catches it on the outside there with an overhook and then shoves Derksen right back into the cage. Leg trip takedown. Hunviksson is on top position, and he is landing some solid ground and pound. It's not a lot of it. It's very deliberate, very considered ground and pound right now. He's got semi-knee on the belly there with Derksen's back to the cage. Derksen did not really maintain any kind of really solid guard there, and this is a bit of a problem. He's taking it to the body and the face there, body, head. The great strategies of Randy Couture here in the ground and pound of Jack Hunviksson. Forearm across the throat. And a big right hand by Hunviksson. That's got Derksen bleeding again. Solid blood coming from the nose of Byron Derksen and general facial region. He might be cut elsewhere there. So that is a bit of a problem. In fact, I see some swelling on the eye socket there, the orbital bone region. This could be a serious problem for Derksen. He is very much damaged, but he does manage to roll to his roll over, and he is getting back up. Big knee on the up exchange, though, from Hunviksson. He pulls away and lands a solid 3-punch combination, but Derksen staggers him back with a right hand of his own. Derksen is firing here with 1 minute to go, a little bit under a minute to go, about 45 seconds to go in the round. Derksen trying to march him down. Hunviksson with another thunderous takedown against the cage, though. Derksen did not get off the cage at any point. He is on his knees, eating shots, not fully down. The takedown was not fully committed to, was not fully taken, but there's less than 30 seconds in, and this has turned the round again in the favor of Hunviksson. It was looking like he was maybe out of ideas, out of creativity, but now he is fighting like we know he can with this clinch game, this takedown-oriented game, and that is some thunderous ground and pound that he is landing up against the cage. Derksen's face is an absolute mess here as we have under 10 seconds to go in the round. Derksen trying to secure a single leg of his own, managed to get back up to his feet. Lands a hard uppercut of his own. Hunviksson backs up staggered a little bit. Derksen lurching forward and the end of the round comes. Looked like Derksen might have been turning it around a little bit there, but he is also an absolute mess. The referee is calling for the doctor to step into this fight and see what happens here. Hunviksson looks okay. Little rocked maybe, little winded. There is some heavy breathing going on here. This has been a relatively decent pace fight for two men weighing at the scales at 265 pounds, maybe closer to 300 pounds come fight time. In the case of Derksen, Derksen is standing in his corner, offered the stool, did not take it. And we're looking, no, the doctor is waving this one off. There is a definitive problem with the eye socket region and nasal region of Byron Derksen. He is significantly damaged. And I think maybe this is the end for the Derksen family because, of course, earlier in this card, Gerald Derksen went down to Grappling by knockout in the first round. And now it looks like we're going to get a TKO doctor stoppage here. 5 minutes of the second round. Hunviksson doing an excellent job bringing it home. And there's really nothing else I can say here. That was a fantastic performance by Jack Hunviksson. Joachim Jackhammer Hunviksson moving on to the round and improving his record to 12-2 as a heavyweight here. I have to think that means he's going to have the pick when it comes to the semifinals. I mean, I think Grappling had a great performance here tonight against Gerald Derksen, but Mark Meatloaf Kelso, Jonathan Hellsfire Smith, they were not terribly inspiring when they took their victories here today, and that might give Hunviksson, who has just picked up one of the bigger upsets on the card, actually. He came into this as a plus 275 underdog, which was the largest underdog odds Hunviksson has had in his career, and he delivered. I was particularly impressed with the counterboxing that he showed, particularly in the first round, that I think really altered this fight, because I think Byron Derksen had to accept that the pocket was not going to be his home in this fight, that the pocket was not going to be a safety net or a place that he could control. And being denied that, I think that his game kind of fell apart. I think we saw the ability that the outfighting game was there, and I'm very intrigued by what a rematch between these two men would think down the road, possibly with the belt at stake. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. That is the semifinals ticket punched for Mr. Joachim Hunviksson. We'll see what he wants to do in the coming bouts. And we're on to the main event between Shane Shaolin Campbell and Sheldon Westcott to finish off our day here. A pair of UFC veterans facing off. So I hope you enjoyed this particular fight. And we're heading on to OFC 4 next round, which is going to include the lightweight quarterfinals. That card is far from set in stone right now, but the main event will feature Scott Hands of Steel Smith taking on Brett Fudoshin Cooper, as well as a battle between Dirty Robbie Scott as he takes on the Massacre Hatch in the lightweight quarterfinals. And we're awaiting the other selections here. We also have an alternative bout between Captain Jack Taylor taking on the Mag Show, Kyle Magus. So get ready for, whatever reigns supreme on that card.